What's up, YouTube? We're going to talk essential metal today. Bloodbath's second record, Nightmares Made Flesh. Bloodbath is a death metal supergroup of sorts that features members of Catatonia, initially Michael Ackerfeld from Opeth, although this particular record features a frontman from Hypocrisy on vocals instead. Nightmares Made Flesh is the band's second record of only 4 to date. It was released in 2004, and it is front to back one of the best death metal records I have ever heard. Of course, since it wasn't released in the 90s, it will never get the accolades, but judging off the quality of the music alone, it should. First off, the production of this record, it sits right on that tipping point between polished modern death metal and that old school classic sound. The mix is clearer, more crisp, and less muddy than those 90s records, but just as raw. The kick drums are in your face, but not completely machine-like and clicky like what became the norm in the 21st century. So as a result, you get the sense that you're listening to an early to mid-90s death metal record filtered through 2004. Now, secondly, and perhaps most importantly, Nightmares Made Flesh does not sacrifice riffs for brutality. Why do we still remember Tomb of the Mutilated almost 25 years later? Sure, it's brutal, but a lot of death metal albums are brutal. There's a whole subgenre dedicated to brutal death metal. So why do we remember an album like Tomb of the Mutilated? It's the riffs. Songs like Beyond the Cemetery and I Come Blood and Hammer Smash Face, all these classics, they have riffs that stick with you. The same can be said for the songs on Nightmares Made Flesh. And that's one of the reasons this was such a pivotal record for somebody like me first getting into death metal. Because my first love was thrash metal. I look for riffs in my metal. Of course, later I would find tons of metal subgenres that were not centered around riffs that were phenomenal. But when I was first listening to death metal, I liked the band Death more than I liked Suffocation, because Death gave me more riffs. And Bloodbath give you more riffs than you know what to do with on Nightmares Made Flesh. So we'll start with the album's centerpiece, really. It's a track called Eaten. And here are some opening lyrics to this track. I have one desire since I was born, to see my body wrecked and torn, to see my flesh devoured before my eyes. Those are the opening lyrics to that track. I mean, if that doesn't tickle your fancy as a metal fan, it's time you get a new genre. Ironically, there's actually a pretty big early Suffocation influence on this track with those stomping, slow, sludgy, heavy breakdowns. But most importantly, this track has, quite simply, one of the catchiest choruses in the history of the death metal genre. And that's why I recommend starting right here with this track, because a catchy chorus like this, it's a bit of a gateway in the sense that Cannibal Corpse choruses like Make Them Suffer and Evisceration Plague are if you're first getting into death metal. Now, this video is not essential death metal gateways, but I figured I would point that out. Especially if there are viewers watching who are like, well, I came to your channel because I saw you reviewed Bullet for My Valentine and you reviewed Atreyu. What is this? Is this like completely inaccessible death metal? So I figured I'd point that out if people are looking to give this album a chance who are not fans of the genre. But on that note, I never thought of Nightmares Made Flesh as like a renowned album necessarily, but I was doing some death metal quiz online and I stumbled across, it was like a lyric quiz, I stumbled across the lyrics to Eaten. And then I kind of realized, like, wow, this is a song that many casual fans have heard. And back to the hook for a minute, there is an actual hook here that draws you into the record the way like an accessible single draws you into like a pop record. Brave New Hell is another such track on here with a super hooky chorus vocally, but musically it takes this tremolo-picked melody, which is also pretty catchy, and by the end transforms it into this brutal breakdown. And elsewhere, the song is anchored by this galloping, chunky main riff, and then later, these dissonant, clean guitar arpeggios kind of appear out of nowhere and give the song a lot more depth. And lead guitar-wise, the presence of some melodic and more structured solos as opposed to the usual death metal chaos give this song, and a lot of others on Nightmares Made Flesh, some room to breathe. The song Soul Evisceration, which actually follows up Brave New Hell in the track list, is another key highlight. It's got this groovy, verse riff that is the catchiest riff on the entire record. Seriously, I could make an entire video about this fucking riff. I will not do that because I will save my poor viewers the trouble, but I could do it. Honestly, by the minute 20 mark in this song, there's been so much pounding groove that the crazy blast beats are actually like a welcome diversion. And then, of course, it dives right back into headbanging territory. That's another thing. Like, Soul Evisceration is a perfect example of this. Nightmares Made Flesh is practically a groove metal record at points. Obviously, it is death metal through and through, but there's a lot less chaos and a little bit more order, which is why this is real recommended listening for either somebody just getting into death metal or for a listener who's looking for something semi-modern but with a more old school style. The track Bastard Son of God gets a shout out as well with its balls out verses and its uber catchy tremolo picked chorus, which is really in the vein of the Brave New Hell chorus. I mean, there is not a single skippable track on here. The songs simply range from great to exceptional. Outnumbering the Day is a song that has yet another verse section that gives you an incredible riff with a lot of motion to look forward to. Then it features some brooding lead guitar in the chorus that really give the song its overall darkness. And there's also a semi-melodic guitar solo that's kind of a nice little breather before the track ends a lot more chaotically. Another one of my favorites is Year of the Cadaver Race, which is just a masterful song. Riff after fucking riff. It's pure thrash to kick things off. More verse riffing that sticks in your head like glue in the vein of Soul Evisceration and Outnumbering the Day. And then it's got this perfectly timed, doomy, creepy bridge section that builds on itself with these chaotic lead guitar parts that essentially sound like the screams of innocent children. And then it jumps right back into thrash. And these dramatic transitions, like on Year of the Cadaver Race, lead me to my last point, which is there are lots of tempo changes and mood swings on Nightmares Made Flesh that always keep things fresh and interesting. Ascension is a sludgy one. Draped in Disease also has a slow, grinding bridge section. These are the kind of dynamics that can take an ordinary death metal record to the next level. So the bottom line is, if you're on the prowl for death metal that is a bit groovier, a bit more riff-centric, a bit more structured, yet still crushingly heavy, you can't get much better in the modern day than Nightmares Made Flesh. For me, this is a record that everybody should hear, regardless of their orientation within the metal world. So, yeah, check this thing out. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.